What if the choice you're about to make has already been made? Not by you, not yet, but by the version of you that exists on the other side of this moment. Not a metaphor, not a thought experiment, a mathematical certainty that has survived 40 years of attempts to disprove it. Scientists have run the experiment. They've published the results. And the results say something that most physicists are still too uncomfortable to say out loud. At conferences, the future is not waiting for you. The future is already there. And it is reaching backward through time, right now, threading its fingers into every decision you think you're making freely. You need to hear this. Because once you understand what the physics actually says, not the pop science summary, the actual implications, you will never experience a moment of your life the same way again. In 1978, physicist John Wheeler proposed an experiment so disturbing that his colleagues initially refused to take it seriously. Wheeler was not a fringe theorist. He coined the term black hole. He collaborated directly with Einstein and Niels Bohr. He was one of the architects of modern physics. And what he proposed was this: a decision made now can travel backward through time and change what already happened. The experiment is called the delayed choice experiment. Here is what it does. A single photon, one particle of light, is fired toward a barrier with two slits. Before it reaches the barrier, the photon behaves like a wave, spreading out and passing through both slits at once, the way water ripples through two openings simultaneously. But the instant you place a detector to observe which slit it uses, the photon stops being a wave and becomes a particle. It collapses into a single path. It makes a choice. Wheeler's insight was to move the detector to place the observation point after the photon had already passed the barrier, after the choice should have been made. And what happened next shattered the comfortable assumption that the past is finished. The photon, retroactively, changed what it had done. The observation that happened after the photon passed through the barrier rewrote the history of what the photon had already done before the observation occurred. This was confirmed in laboratory conditions by teams at the University of Queensland in 2015, published in Nature Physics. The past was not closed. It was open, waiting for a signal from the future to tell it what to be. That is not philosophy. That is an experiment, conducted by real scientists, replicated more than 40 times. The past can be changed by the future. That result has never been overturned. Here is what almost nobody talks about when they explain this experiment in a classroom or a textbook. If a photon's past can be rewritten by a future observation, then the photon's past was never really fixed in the first place. It was a probability, a cloud of potential histories, waiting for something from the future to collapse it into a single, definite story. And if that is true for a photon, what makes you think it is not true for you? Physicist Aharonov at Chapman University has spent over 5 decades developing what he calls the two-state vector formalism. It is not a fringe theory. It is taken seriously by the most credentialed quantum physicists alive. And what it says is this: every quantum system, every particle, every event, every moment is shaped by two waves of time simultaneously. One wave moves forward from the past. The other moves backward from the future. Both are real. Both are physically present in the mathematics. And what actually happens in the present moment is the result of both waves meeting, negotiating, colliding. What they never told you in physics class is that the backward wave from the future is not hypothetical. It is required by the equations. Remove it and the math breaks. It has to be there. The future is not a passive place that waits for the present to arrive. The future is an active participant in what happens right now. And if your future self already exists as a quantum state, and the mathematics of the block universe says that it does, then that future version of you is already exerting a backward influence on the decisions you think you're making freely today. The feeling that you have a choice may be accurate, but the outcome of that choice may already be settled, flowing backward through time to shape the version of you that is standing here, reading this, wondering if any of it could possibly be real. It is real, and the implications go further than most scientists are willing to say publicly. Einstein's equations of special relativity, confirmed to 11 decimal places of accuracy, do not contain a preferred direction of time. The mathematics works equally well, whether time runs forward or backward. And when you extend those equations into what cosmologists call the block universe, or eternalism, you arrive at a description of reality where past, present, and future are not sequential. They are simultaneous. They all exist, right now, spread out across a four-dimensional landscape of space-time. The way the surface of a painting exists all at once, even though your eye moves across it one point at a time. Einstein himself wrote about this. After the death of his closest friend, Michele Besso, in 1955, just weeks before his own death, Einstein wrote to Besso's family, "Now he has departed from this strange world, a little ahead of me. That means nothing." People like us, who believe in physics, know that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. He was not being poetic, he was being precise. The equations he spent his life developing say explicitly that every moment of your life, every moment that has happened, and every moment that will happen, exists simultaneously in the belt structure of space-time. You are not moving through time. Your consciousness is moving through a structure that already contains the last second of your life, already laid out, already real. Now, bring in Aharonov's backward causality. If the future already exists as a physical structure, and information can flow backward through time the way the delayed choice experiment proves it can, then the future does not just passively contain your fate, it actively shapes your path toward it. In 2016, researchers at the Australian National University published results in Nature Physics, confirming that photons can be entangled not just across space, but across time. Two photons that never coexist, one measured before the other is even created, can still share quantum information. The present and the future were exchanging information in a controlled laboratory environment, repeatedly, consistently. And then there is the neuroscience. Benjamin Libet's experiments at UCSF in the 1980s, controversial but extensively replicated, showed that the brain's readiness potential, the neural buildup that precedes a voluntary movement, begins between 500 and 1,000 milliseconds before a person becomes consciously aware of the intention to move. The decision registers in the body before the mind knows it has been made. The signal arrives before the consciousness that seems to send it. Libet spent the rest of his career trying to explain where that signal came from. One answer is that it came from the future. That the future self, who has already lived through the consequence, sent the signal backward through the neural architecture, arriving as a quiet certainty in the present moment that the conscious mind then claimed as its own decision. That is not mysticism. That is what the physics permits, what the physics requires. Every decision you have ever agonized over, every night you lay awake running scenarios, every moment you felt paralyzed at a crossroads, every time you made a choice and immediately wondered if you made the wrong one, the physics says that choice was already settled. Not by some external force, not by fate in any mystical sense, by you, a version of you that already lives on the other side of the decision. A version of you that already knows how it ends. That future self is not separate from you. In the block universe, they are you, the same continuous structure of identity stretched across time. And if Aharonov's backward wave is real, they are not passively watching you stumble toward them. They are pulling every signal you have ever received that you could not explain rationally. Every pull toward a decision that defied logic. Every moment of certainty that arrived without evidence that may have been the data, the backward signal, your future self leaking through. Think about the moments in your life when you made a decision that made no sense at the time and turned out to be exactly right. Think about the times you ignored the pull, chose the logical path, and spent years correcting for it. What if the pull was not irrational at all? What if it was the most precise information available to you? A direct transmission from a version of you that has already lived the outcome. You do not have access to your future, but your future has access to you. It always has, and it has been communicating through the only channel available, the language of feeling, of intuition, of the inexplicable certainty that some things are simply right before you can explain why. John Wheeler, in the last decade of his life, said something that physicists still argue over at dinner tables. He said, "The universe is not a machine that runs independently of observers." He called it a participatory universe, one in which consciousness is not a passenger, but a co-author. He believed that the act of observation does not just record reality. It creates it. He spent 60 years doing the mathematics. He was not speaking metaphorically. And here is what that means for you, right now, in this moment, that your future self has already decided. You are not watching your life happen to you. You are the collapse point. You are the place where the wave from the past and the wave from the future meet, negotiate, and become the present. Every moment you exist, you are the intersection of everything that has already happened and everything that is already waiting. You are not drifting through time. Time is drifting through you, from both directions at once. The fear you feel about the future, the uncertainty, the anxiety, the desperate wish to know how it turns out, is built on a premise the physics refuses to support. The premise that the future is empty, that it is a void waiting to be filled by your choices. But the block universe says the future is already full. Your future self is already there, already solid, already living in the consequence of every choice you are making right now. So here is what I want to leave you with. If your future self has already navigated everything you are afraid of, if they are already on the other side of the loss, the failure, the uncertainty you cannot see past, what is the fear exactly protecting you from? And if the answer is nothing, if the fear is the illusion and the pull you keep ignoring is the signal, what changes tomorrow? If this rewired something in you, subscribe and leave one word in the comments. The one thing you keep choosing to ignore. Your future self already knows what you typed.